You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone, welcome from your Intuition Queen. This is a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast, and today I have the pleasure to have with me Carla Ginsberg, who is the CEO of Cranial Island Studios. Hi Carla, I hope I spelled your name right.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you have a really interesting story about how you use your intuition, your creativity to get to where you are right now, and you will tell us a little bit about it. So would you like to tell us your story?
Yes, definitely. Yes, thank you for having me. So it started, I would say, growing up, I was always creative and I always knew I wanted to be a kids book illustrator. That was actually probably the first job I really wanted growing up. And as I went through school, it's a lot of tests and, just memorizing very stale books, textbooks. I love reading, but the textbooks themselves and just the dry data and interpreting that into a test it was a very left brain thing, very analytical, and it was always a challenge for me. So growing up, I always never did well in school, actually. I almost failed math one year just because I was having such a hard time understanding what was being taught to me. And it was a really big struggle for me. I used to get made fun of for being stupid. And I think that actually started motivating me to want to really make it as an artist. And anytime growing up, I thought about the possibility of, working, what would it be like to work in a 9-to-5 office job, which is what you're kind of taught from, like, this is what you're going to do when you grow up. I would automatically, hands down, every time, I would just let myself feel what I needed to feel, and it was very depressed. And then anytime I thought about painting and drawing and just making kids' books and being creative, always felt 100% happy and fulfilled. So I always knew that was the direction I needed to be in my life. And
that's amazing. And I'm sorry, I want to stop you there because you were very young and you already were going towards how would I feel if I get a job and how would I feel if I go and become an artist. And that is amazing.
Thank you. Yes, it's always kind of imposed, I feel like, on a lot of creative people that there's nothing out there for that. And it's, it's not possible. And I always knew that was just not going to work for me, I guess. And I didn't know what my life would look like, but I just knew that, like, I had to hold on to some kind of hope. And I kind of kept a lot of my artwork and dreams about it a secret because I didn't want to be told that it wasn't possible. Since I was already...
Did you have people around you telling you you're never going to become an artist and you're never going to make money with it?
Yeah, it was more, well, one part of it that I was always really, looking back now, I'm actually very happy about is that my parents were always 100% supportive. Thought it was really cool that I always knew what I wanted to do because they didn't, and they just kind of did what they had to do. So they always thought it was really cool that I always wanted to be an artist. And I think that actually helped me kind of get through it a little bit, but it was really honestly my peers and, an extension of people outside my immediate family that were judgmental, telling me what life is going to be like, if I make this decision and go to grad school or different things, it's not going to work out. It's too hard. Don't do it. Or, in school growing up, like I would, because I had such a hard time in school that I would get made fun of for being stupid, and people would say things like, how are you going to do things like pay your taxes? Like, you can't even do any of that,
Oh, wow, that's awful.
Weird stuff for a high school, but also, yeah, it was always really hard. But I really kept everything a secret and just kind of would go into my room or go into my own space and just draw and paint as much as possible to like let it out.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is what saved me. Like art class was always my safe space for myself to just feel like I was good at something in school and that I could do it and that, you know, I could excel in something.
Mm.
And I just it's kind of a thing where I kept my head down and just like did my work. And then I prayed a lot, you know, like I really want this to be something, like please help me get there kind of feeling. And I would accidentally manifest my future, I think.
Accidentally? Talk to us about this. Tell us a little bit more. What do you mean? I love it.
So when I was in that place where I was just really unhappy and it was in my hometown and everything was pretty black and white, you know, straight and narrow, like you go to college and you get this job and you have this lifestyle. I just felt all this pressure to be somebody that I wasn't. And I have like a very big imagination, which I think a lot of creative people actually do. And that kind of saved me. And in a way, I accidentally was manifesting things because I would, you know, walk around or I would go somewhere and I would just pretend that I was in a place and I wanted to live, which for me, like New York City and California were both my dreams. Like I would have lived in both places. So I would.
And mine too.
You're in London. That's pretty cool.
No, I'm sorry. I just thought it was funny.
I would, you know, drive around and I would just pretend that I was in California, like what I thought it might look like, or, you know, I'd go for a walk and I would just pretend I was in Times Square or just something. Like I would just it was kind of what saved me because my imagination was like the only thing that would allow me to escape where I was and kind of put my place that I really wanted to be. And I ended up living in both cities, you know, or both places. And I feel like that was because I manifested it while I was just trying to get by in a place where you didn't have those kinds of options. And, you know, I didn't really understand how to relate to people to kind of show my talent and show my dreams and goals in a way that was conducive where I would get a lot of support. Like it was just kind of felt different from a lot of other people because I don't know, I have like quirky personality traits and interests. So I just kept a lot of things a secret and kind of just did it alone in my bedroom. And, you know, and it felt like a miracle that I got into FIT. I didn't think didn't get into any other schools because my grades were so bad. But they saw that I had the portfolio because I did have a good artist portfolio. They accepted me into the illustration program, and that was really the first time I got to move to a city and just be around people that were like me, that just got me, and I didn't feel like I was being judged based on preconceived notions of who people thought I was or where I came from or anything else. So it was really a thing that really saved me in a lot of ways. And you know, when I was graduating, it was during the recession. It was 2009, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. And, you know, I was getting frustrated. I had one teacher yell at me that I wasn't going to make it and do anything because I had an interview class. Yeah, I was in a class it was like all end of semester marketing students, and we were doing practice interviews for jobs that we wanted. And I was in the middle of, you know, an illustration program. So we were in different places, but this teacher really made it. I mean, I've had a few teachers yell at me throughout the course of my whole education leading up to college, but in college, it kind of drove me where I was like, you know, I'm gonna make it. I'm not gonna not make it because I can't do this one class. Like, I'm not gonna let you determine my future.
Yeah, it's so silly. I mean, like, people don't have to be good at everything, you know, like we have different traits.
And people really have expectations of like, you'll only make it if you're good at X, Y, and Z things. Like,
yeah,
every time being creative about what they are good at.
Yeah.
And in my senior show, I got into, with my associates and bachelor's program, I got into the FIT for this in your shows, and I had one teacher just say I was lucky, like, oh, you're just lucky. And I've had that happen a lot where if I do anything in Excel, just like, oh, you're lucky, you just got lucky that time, and to like kind of like dismiss and downplay my hard work.
So how did all this made you feel? Because it's so amazing that you were able to just step into your own world and start imagining where you wanted to live and what you wanted to do. So I think this is fantastic that nobody taught you this, you just found your own place. But I guess that from emotional point of view, having people constantly telling you that you're not good enough can put you down. How did you manage to balance the two situations, especially when you're studying that you're supposed to be, all up and like all pumped up and wanting to change the world and be very enthusiastic about what you're doing and being surrounded by people that understand you?
Yeah, I had a really good support system with my immediate family and a good close group of friends that I met in college. And we just, I just was determined. I think it pushed me more. I think people telling me I couldn't do it, it really drove me to want to show them that they are wrong even more, because the more it happened, the more I wanted to prove everybody wrong. And kind of more than everybody else, but for myself. I always wanted to show myself that I was intelligent and that I could learn a lot of things and be smart in my own capacity and like excel in the ways that I wanted to. And one thing that really helped with this later on is, so I moved to California. I went to grad school and dropped out of grad school and worked as a production assistant at a museum for a bit. And I was trying to figure my way through things. And one thing that was actually really great is that my parents are both in sales. So growing up, I was always around during their sales calls. Me and my dad joke now because there are times where he was tired of making sales calls. And when I was a kid, he actually had me do them for him. So
no, that's amazing.
At his office. Yeah.
Practicing.
And at the time, I was really mad about it, but now I love it because it really helped me later on when it was the recession. I didn't know what I was going to do as a job creation. I kind of put myself in a sales role unintentionally, but just using what I had from that experience to get the museum job, to kind of just put myself out there. I was not afraid at this point, also because of all the people that put me down throughout my life. Kind of felt fearless in a lot of ways. Like I feel like I already went through the worst. And for me, it was like, it can, I already know what the worst thing feels like and I'm over it. So
I like this. I really like this because I feel that, we meet people throughout our lives telling us we're not good enough and we will never make it. And I think this is amazing that you use that instead of allowing it to put you down and forget about your dreams. You used it to make your dreams possible. I think this is extremely powerful because you're going to find in your life people that will tell you that you can't do it, you're not good enough, you don't have enough skills or whatever it is. But it's the belief that you had in you that you could make things possible. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I really feel lucky that it drove me in a lot of ways. And I feel like the universe also, God has a way of showing up. Sort of like anytime I just said, forget it. Because there were definitely points, especially after I dropped out of grad school and was trying to find my footing, where I was ready to just give up on everything because I felt like I was at my wit's end. Anytime I was like, you know what, I'm just done painting. I'm just over this whole thing. I would get asked to be in an art show like the next day. So it kept happening. So at some point, I was like, all right, has to be a sign that I need to be in this, because anytime I'm ready to leave or drop out, or I've almost had to move home a couple of times because we were running out of money, something would happen, like if by a miracle. It felt like a miracle. And they were just different creative jobs. And, back to the sales part of it, I would go to networking events and I would really pitch myself there. And because I had that experience growing up and I already felt like I was criticized the worst that someone could criticize me many times over, I had no fear of rejection.
Mm.
Go to these networking events and just really put myself out there. But because it was the recession, I would get little projects instead, which I was very happy with because I just wanted to draw and
Yeah.
I got to do that. Meanwhile, my husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, and we met at the school that we both went to in California, and he stayed in his program and was graduating with his master's in animation. And at the time, he came from a very educational background, growing up, where it was just like you do your studies and then you will get a good job. So kind of the missing link with the in between of that, he had no experience in with the sales and the, kind of putting yourself out there. And he's extremely introverted on top of it. So he kind of didn't really want to learn because it was torturous for him. So I was like, told him, you know what, I'll just try to network for both of us because I know this is a really hard thing for you. You have anxiety and you're introverted, and this is a part of yourself that you just don't have any interest in this. So it'll be harder for him to sell well if he's in that mental state. So I would go and kind of try to sell both of our abilities, and we did start getting a couple animation projects. And we're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, this isn't the direction we thought things would go in, but that's totally fine. And we just, after a couple, one client was a friend of a friend, and she said, look, I already knew you two, and I really knew that you guys were dependable and great, but people that don't already know you will have a harder time trusting just because that's human nature, and suggested that we just start a company. And I was like, you know what, maybe this is better. Because also during the recession, because my parents worked for themselves and were in sales, I saw a lot of friends of mine whose parents lost their jobs, the jobs the ones that I was told my whole life that this is what you're going to do and this is the only way you can make it. I felt like they were the ones that were getting fired, losing everything. I had one or two friends that had to pay for their parents' mortgage while they were getting back on.
Wow.
Yeah, so I said, you know what, screw everyone's expectations, because what they told me reality isn't even working. And meanwhile, my parents were recession proof, it felt like to me, because their businesses dipped down a little bit, but they never lost clients. They went and bought a bigger house during the recession and nicer cars. And I thought, that's what I want to do, and it really gave me a full perspective of, just because you're hired under a company and you get benefits doesn't mean it's guaranteed for the rest of your life. That baby boomer expectation of you get your one job and you're there for 40 years or whatever, and that's it. Sick anymore.
Yeah, I know everything about that because that's how my parents thought, and that's what I had to always go against and be like, I'm not gonna work for 40 years in the same company, you're crazy. But yeah, and I think it's amazing. Well, you had a great example, but I think it's amazing that you had that forward thinking of being like, okay, let's do it. What do we have to lose? I think for you was also you didn't have the fear of having to lose something, so you just went with it, and it was a perfect timing.
Yeah, that's a lesson for me that I want to really put out there for a lot of artists, because I know a lot are struggling, or creative people, is that when you already face a certain amount of rejection and you already know how bad things can be, you really have nothing left to lose. So at what point do you just say, I'm just going to keep putting myself out there because I already know what the worst possible expectation is, the worst thing that can happen to me, and is it really that bad? Is it worse than not doing what I want to do with my life? And
Can you say that again, please?
yes. So when everyone that's an artist at some point faces rejection. You're told your work isn't that great, or you just got lucky that one time, or your dreams are not realistic with reality, or just whatever. when you were told that a certain amount of times in so many different ways, at what point do you just tell yourself, like, I already know now this is the worst thing that could happen, and it's not as bad as not doing what I want to do with my life. And just say to yourself, I've already faced the worst kind of rejection, so what else do I have to lose?
I like it. I like it. And I think it's so true in general for artists, I guess, because that becomes personal. You are rejecting myself instead of rejecting my work, and I can do better. But I think it's for a lot of us, fear of rejection is what stops us from really move on and continuously try. I mean, all the big ones have tried and failed, until they managed to succeed. So I think that is a big point that you're making, in continue to go on and trust himself, and just keep going until one day you will make it. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we've definitely taken the longer route to get to where we want to be. Like, we definitely have peers and friends that went the more, the normal route, and some of them are already, they have their house, and especially in our families, our siblings, like, they're married with kids and they have their steady income and everything. But I feel like what we do is personally fulfilling, where we're kind of getting close to matching up to where everybody else is. We're pretty much about in the same place as everyone now. It took us an extra 5 to 10 years to get there, but it's so much more fulfilling for both of us because we're doing what we always dreamed of.
Oh yeah.
And exceeding your own expectations is the best feeling, and it's the biggest, like, fuck you to everyone else. I
Yes.
did it. And you guys can all fuck yourselves. It's like,
Yeah.
it's an empowerment thing. I feel good every day. I go to bed feeling great about what I'm doing, because I'm doing exactly what I want to do and on my own terms. And of course, you have to, supplement that along the way. I've had, part-time jobs and other things on the road to get there, but I just kept the vision in sight of, just making vision boards and dreaming about the end goal. And when we get there, what does it look like? And then now, as we're actually about to be there, we're kind of in the final stages of our growth, I feel like, to be where our initial goals are. It's the best feeling in the world, and it's better than anything that if I had listened to other people, I would be in a polar opposite direction, So it's
I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, just turning off everybody else's thoughts and opinions, or using that as a drive for yourself.
Yeah.
Is the best feeling, because then when you do it, you feel so good. And
yeah. And I think, it's so difficult sometimes, especially when you grow up in maybe a family that doesn't support you, or you don't have the support system of your friends, to really start to believe in yourself that you can be different. But as you said, and I love that you had that space for yourself where nobody could understand you, but you created that space where you kept dreaming. I think we need to keep dreaming and dream big, because we can achieve that. Of course, like if I say now I am going to have £1 million house and whatever, it's not gonna happen tomorrow. But dreaming big doesn't it doesn't hurt you. If anything, it just gives you that energy that you need to keep moving on and do the bits that you need to do on a daily basis to actually go to maybe a smaller and more achievable goal. So yeah,
it's the fight is worth it for the end result, for sure. And even the part-time job to keep afloat in the meantime, it kept showing me, like, I have to keep going, because what I couldn't fall back on, I still don't want, and just being in touch with yourself. Like, I grew up in what felt like a more competitive community of creatives, where, it was like, who was the loudest, who was the most out there, those were the creative geniuses, and all that. And it always kind of felt like that. And I didn't want to be competitive in that way. Like, I feel like some creatives, especially when you're growing up, they're taught to, like, compete, or they just are competitive. And what I love about illustration animation is that it's just like you get to make your own thing, which I feel like is what art is really about. It's not about who's the best or who's the best at being creative or singing or dancing or showing that, but just, you know, how do you express what's inside outwardly? And you know, I definitely was never the best artist in the class, especially in college. I was not, but I just kept going. And I feel like I've exceeded my own expectations of my personal art because it was just like a way for me to release anything I was holding on to emotionally. And that, you know, I could paint for a couple hours and then just feel so good after. And I was like, you know, at the end of the day, this is what's important to me and not comparing myself to other people and matching up our grades and our artwork and seeing who did it best.
Yeah.
And having, I think having that sense of self and a boundary around that, you know, to protect myself was really, and that's something I would want other artists to do too. Like, there's always going to be somebody better. There's already going to be people who are successful.
Yeah.
Sure, a ton of people that failed, but like you can't keep comparing yourself to who did and didn't do it. You just have to be like, where am I? Where do I want to go? And then just keep letting yourself work on it without those putting those expectations and, you know, mindsets on yourself. Like, art should just be a fluid thing. So instead of being like, I want to be here by next year with my artwork, you just have to like let yourself get there. And maybe there's training courses online or there's different ways technically to get there, but you gotta let yourself feel good about what you're doing every day. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love this. And I think it's so important, especially now with all the social media, you tend to compare yourself to so many people. And like, for me, even as an entrepreneur, and I speak to a lot of coaches and, you know, oh, have you seen this? And have you seen that? I'm like, yeah, I like the branding, I like this, but this is me with what I have. And I know as a coach, I have a message to share and I have a lot to give. I don't have the perfect branding. I sometimes don't have the perfect sound on my podcast. I don't have the perfect this and the perfect that, but I'm going. And this is what matters because I love it. And your message is just so powerful because I think comparison is another thing that stops a lot of people. They're striving for perfection that doesn't exist. Or, you know, you see someone that has a lot of audience, but you don't know what they've went through. And so you just have to keep going for your own way until you get to a point that is the point that you want to reach.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, you know, if the cameras on social media were turned off, if people weren't looking at your work at the end, how do you feel about it? You know, something that's important to do, because if you actually are really happy with your work, but you're just hearing along the way criticisms or comparisons, you can't focus. You know, you're not going to be the best because you're just seeing what's not working right now. And that's so detrimental to art because art is about expression and just putting yourself out there in a way that, you know, you normally can't do in any other medium. And people just really lose sight of that. And, you know, it's just like, I even was in one art class, my first watercolor class, where people got really mad because we had to do a Greek mythology project. And I did one where, I forget all the Greek gods' names, but one was dragging, I think it was Dionysus into hell, because I have a dark sense of humor. And I thought it was really funny, and people got really angry, and I got, you know, torn up for it by the class kind of came down.
Wow.
The teacher after was like, I'm sorry about that. And I'm like, at this point, I'm just so over rejection anyway. I just don't even care anymore. Like, you know, and it's just so, it was good. It was like, it helped me build up my own personal self-esteem with my art and feeling comfortable with my art and going into places that people may not like because it makes them uncomfortable, because I don't create for classmates, I create for myself. Or if I have a client, I'm creating for them. You know, I wouldn't show what I'm making for a client to friends or random people, because everyone has a different opinion about something that's subjective.
Oh, yeah. Art especially, because as you said earlier, it's emotional. So I might get a feeling from your art and someone else will have an opposite feeling. So yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah. Um, so tell us exactly what you do, what kind of art you do, and because I know you then created your own business, which is the one that you started off from that conversation with your friend.
Yeah, I do a few different things. So the company is an animation studio where we create animated video content for businesses. So we're a content creation studio, and I love it. I love the creative challenge of taking a business that is very technical or maybe not as the most exciting business, but giving it life and making it interesting and exciting or tangible and conceptual in a way where anybody can understand the message
Mm,
or the story of the business. So I think of myself as a visual storyteller, and that's really what I focus on with my clients, and that is sitting down with them and figuring out how to take what they do and, you know, taking that to a visual story that really tells it in under 2 minutes, which is a really fun challenge, and it's a lot of fun. Everybody has something different. Everyone has different inspirations. So I personally find it really fulfilling to get to do something different for every client. And that really has been a big thing for me that I really love. Another thing that I do is I'm a kids book illustrator. I finally got to do
as
that,
you wanted to be.
and I'm so happy. I absolutely love it. I'm going to be starting my fifth book soon for the year. And for, you know, it's been a thing where I've had a couple authors every now and again, and I think word's kind of getting out there. So I absolutely love it. It is as fun as I thought it would be as a kid. So it's a really big passion of mine, and it's again visual storytelling. It's same thing with clients. You know, what is your story, and how do I interpret that in a way that you want and the way that you like it? And it's absolutely fulfilling, and I love it. And then the other thing I do is I do watercolor paintings, and I sell a couple a year, and that's, I've done custom portraits for people, and that's another side that I want to grow as a business as well, because that's a big part of what fulfills me. So I want to definitely get it out there. I've been in a lot of art shows over the years, and yeah, I love that I get to create and make things and stories and work all the time, and I feel really lucky and blessed that I really have this life and I was able to create it for myself. Like I've had people say, "Oh, you're lucky," and I want to be like, I'm not lucky. I worked hard for this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really grateful that it got me to where I am now. So I have a lot of gratitude for my journey and where it's taking me, and that I didn't give up on myself.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love that you're doing everything that you said you wanted to do when you were younger. It's amazing. It's so beautiful, and I love the fact that you keep on saying you didn't give up on yourself, because I think, you get discouraged so much because of what people say to you or what situations you face. But if you keep going, if you keep on believing that you will make it, you will make it. You will make it. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but you will get there. So, oh, that's amazing. Okay, so then tell us where we can find you. So then I will put the links below if anybody that is watching on YouTube, or the details will be in the show notes for everybody that is listening.
Yeah, that's great. So for my animation studio, it is www.visitcistudios.com. And on Instagram, it's underscore CI Studios underscore. And then for my kids' books and personal artwork, it is carlaginsberg.com. And my Instagram is Carla Pates. So I will get to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Before we go, I'd love you to, you have given us a lot of tips and nuggets of wisdom in this episode, but I'd like you to give one advice to the artists that are either starting out or got to a point where maybe after so much rejection, so much work, they feel like it's time to give up, what would you suggest them?
Yeah, when I've been there, what's helped me is creating vision board of when I'm there, what it will look like, so I can start visualizing it and really pretending that I'm there and kind of bringing that into reality and manifesting it. And then also just, kind of what I was saying earlier, would you feel better if you gave up, or would you feel better if you kept going and going until you made it? Because a lot of times the end result is worth every ounce of struggle along the way. But if you give up, you never get to see what you've worked so hard for. So, and there's no, deadline of if you don't make it by this time, you should give up. It's so subjective. You just got to keep going. You could be 70 and finally make it big. Like, you never know when. I still don't know when things will happen for me, and nobody ever really does. So just keep, taking time for yourself and envisioning and creating that life for yourself, and kind of set boundaries around any negative people around you, so that way you can just stay focused on yourself and not other people's expectations of you, which are really just a reflection of themselves.
Yay!
Maybe they gave up on their dreams or their artwork or something. You don't know their story, so you don't know why they're really saying that to you. It could just be part of something they're going through with themselves. So don't take it personally and just keep working on yourself.
Yes, so true, so true. Sometimes, people see you going for what they couldn't go, and they start to tell you not to because they got disappointed. And and sometimes it's a way for them to protect you, not to do it in a bad way, but that you have a different story, so you can make it. Oh my God, thank you so much, Carla. This was so amazing. I absolutely loved everything that you said, and your story is so powerful. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for the opportunity today. I hope that helps somebody out there that, I would have loved to hear this when I was starting out. So I hope I can, be an inspiration for somebody else out there that really wants to make it happen and they're just scared of it not happening.
Yes. And, this podcast is all about inspiring people to follow their dreams, really. So I'm sure that whoever is listening will take something out of it, and I'll make sure to put it out there. Thank you so much. And for everybody watching and listening, if you want to get in touch with Carla, please check the show notes. All the details will be below. If you feel like getting in touch with me, just go to the intuitionqueen.com. And for everybody else, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Bye.
Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the